When you struggle to articulate your thoughts clearly, it doesn't just affect your credibility, it affects your confidence, your career, your relationships, and your leadership. You've got something important to say, you know your stuff, but the moment you start speaking, your brain fogs up, the words don't land, and people tune out. Or worse, they interrupt. You leave the conversation thinking, why couldn't I just say what I meant? Why do my thoughts always muddle up? This is more common than you think, and far more painful than people admit. If you're struggling to articulate yourself clearly in the moment, this video is for you. If you've ever frozen mid-sentence wondering what you were actually talking about, or spoken in circles because you felt you weren't clear enough and you needed to continue explaining, but it got worse and worse and worse, and you end up over-explaining something and still feel misunderstood but drained on top of it, then you're in the right place. Today, I'll show you what's actually happening in your brain when you start struggling to express yourself. And most importantly, I'll teach you how to reclaim clarity, presence, and power every time you speak with actionable techniques that you will be able to put into place today in all circumstances, whether personal or professional. Hi there, I'm Letitia, actor and communication and public speaking coach, here to help you become a stronger and more impactful communicator by helping you enhance your communication skills to create connections that matter, one conversation at a time. Today, we're looking into what the reason is that you struggle to articulate your ideas on the spot and how to solve that. Much to do, my friend. So let's get right into it. Let's start with something most of us have experienced. You're in a meeting or in a casual context in the middle of a conversation. You know the people, you know your content, but the moment you start speaking, your mind suddenly just stops. It goes blank. You've just completely lost everything, all your train of thought. No idea what you were speaking about before or what you're even doing here in the first place. It's just blank. And you end up saying the usual, "I'm so sorry, my mind just went completely blank. What were you saying?" Recognize that? Yep. Terrible feeling. Stanford professor Matt Abrahams calls this a collapse of working memory. Working memory is the part of your brain that allows you to hold and manipulate information in real time. Think of it as your mental whiteboard, where you piece together your thoughts, find the right words, and connect your ideas on the spot. In normal contexts, and when you feel strong, confident, and calm, this whiteboard and your ability to go from one point to the other elegantly might sometimes even surprise you with the verbal and mental dexterity that you have. But under pressure, and this is when it matters and it's the worst, that whiteboard, it shrinks. You can't hold as much as you used to at once. You still have all the knowledge, but the structure that gives it meaning just vanishes. Everything muddles up. This has been studied by researchers in neuroscience in 2009 and again in 2019. The researchers placed participants in high-pressure tasks and under high stress, like public speaking on the spot was one, and monitored their cognitive performance. Even individuals with high verbal intelligence underperformed. Not because they didn't know what to say, but because their ability to organize and access it, so their working memory, deteriorated immensely under stress. Their mental whiteboards just went blank. But don't get angry at your brain for doing that though. Your brain is not just sabotaging you, it's trying to protect you. But in doing so, it just removes access to the very thing that you need most, the clarity to think and speak under pressure. You're left with your knowledge intact, but no space to assemble it. But as you all know by now, clarity in communication isn't just a little bonus. It's the currency of your leadership, power, and charisma. And as we've just seen, clarity doesn't just come from knowing your content. It comes from creating the conditions that allow your brain to deliver the content as you would in a peaceful moment, but under pressure. And that means developing techniques and tools to reduce cognitive overload and managing physiological stress before you speak, not during. It's not a knowledge problem, it's a bandwidth problem. So, this is how you stop the cognitive overload from blocking your working memory systems. Before any high-stakes moment, whether it's a presentation, a meeting, or a difficult conversation, try this. Jot down one key idea you want to express, 2 examples or ways you support or illustrate your key point, and 3 clear takeaways. This simple structure reduces cognitive overload because it gives your brain a map to follow, even if your working memory starts to shrink. It also keeps your message focused and memorable for both you and your listener. 1 key idea, 2 key illustrations, and 3 clear takeaways. 1, 2, 3. Let's take a concrete example to illustrate this tool. Let's say you're talking about why holidays are important. Your one key idea is taking time off isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for high performance, right? That makes sense. You might support that with 2 examples, like research showing that regular breaks improve focus and decision-making, and maybe a personal story of returning from holiday with renewed clarity, right? There, you give your audience 3 takeaways. Schedule your time off in advance, completely disconnect while you're away, and treat rest as part of your productivity strategy, not just a reward after a burnout. It's not about scripting every word. It's about narrowing your focus so that your message can land even when your brain feels the heat. Are you liking this video so far? Let me know by commenting 123 go in the comments below or by clicking on that like button. The most subtle yet powerful reasons we lose clarity when we speak under pressure is that we don't just fear failure, we feel judgment. And that fear rewires how our brain behaves in the moment. Neuroscientist 𝐬𝐿eibh from UCLA has shown through neuroimaging studies that when we experience social threat, like being judged, misunderstood, or excluded, our brain redirects energy away from our prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for complex reasoning, and instead activates the default mode network, which governs emotional processing and social connection. In one particular study, Lieberman and his team used MRI scans to observe participants reacting to situations where they were socially excluded through a virtual ball tossing game where others deliberately stopped including them. What they found was striking. The same area of the brain that processes physical pain lit up during moments of social rejection. In other words, the brain treats judgment and exclusion as real threats. It treats it like real physical pain. At the same time, cognitive control areas go quiet. This means that when you're in a high-stakes social situation, like pitching your idea or answering a critical question, you might think that you're focused on delivering your message, but your brain is actually focused on emotional self-preservation, on seeing if you are still part of the group as every second passes by. Charles Duhigg in Super Communicators echoes this. He explains that in high-pressure conversations, our brain isn't just trying to communicate clearly, it's scanning for signs of safety. It asks, am I still accepted? Am I still respected? And in that moment, you're no longer speaking from intention, you're speaking from instinct. From undergoing years of evolution, our brain is wired to protect our place in the group, not our message. So while you're trying to land your point, your brain is working behind the scenes to keep you liked, to keep you safe and unexposed. And these 2 goals, expressing a strong idea and avoiding rejection, don't always work together. What this means is that if your brain is prioritizing emotional safety, your message gets watered down. You become more focused on how you're being perceived than on what you're actually saying. That's when you start softening your tone or hedging your words or talking in circles, trying to please everyone. And the impact of your idea, your authority, your clarity, and your charisma gets lost. The consequences of this you and I know very well. You start over-explaining, hoping to be understood, but end up sounding uncertain. Or you default to what's agreeable instead of what's true. Or you lose your own conviction, not because your ideas weren't strong, but because your emotional focus is split between the message and the social risk. So here's a tool to stop this from happening and to use before every conversation where you fear that this might happen. Before you speak, ask yourself, what is the one thing that I want them to take away from this? Not how you want to appear, not what you expect or what they expect, but what you want them to walk away with. That single question reorients your brain. It moves you from performative mode to purpose mode. And when your brain has purpose, it calms down. The fear of judgment takes a backseat to clarity of intention. It's a subtle shift, but a powerful one. You stop trying to win approval and start focusing on delivering value. If you would like me to make a full video on how to stop trying to be a people pleaser and get back to your core identity even under stress, we can start a poll. If one of you can comment, yes please, then people that would like that video can just maybe like that comment, and then we can start a poll and count the votes. Like that, we count the likes. Also, if you like this video and you're still here and you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Also, press that little like button if it's not already done. You're mid-conversation and someone asks you a question that you weren't expecting. You pause, you begin to answer, but halfway through, you realize you're editing yourself while you speak. You're wondering, is this making sense? Is this the right tone? Am I using the right words? The result? You lose your thread. You sound hesitant, and even though you're trying to be precise, your message doesn't land. This is what cognitive scientists like Matt Abrahams refer to as over-monitoring. It's what happens when you become overly focused on how you're speaking instead of what you're saying. You're trying to be perfect, but as you know, perfection disrupts performance, and also perfection doesn't exist. In fact, research shows that when we monitor ourselves too closely in real time, it creates a processing delay. Your brain gets stuck in an internal feedback loop. You're speaking and evaluating yourself at the same time, and that interferes with fluid, natural expression, and in turn, that makes you feel detached. Antonio Damasio's work helps explain why this feels so uncomfortable. In his research on emotion and consciousness, he found that the more we separate cognition from emotion, the flatter and less effective our communication becomes. When we overthink, we disconnect from our emotional core. And without that connection, our words lose color, they lose conviction and energy. We sound technically correct, maybe, but not human. The body doesn't follow. The message doesn't breathe. We fail to connect to the other person. And what's the first mission of a super communicator? To connect. Exactly. So, whenever this happens, just know this. You don't need the right words. You need the freedom to let them come out. And that means trusting your preparation and letting go of the need to perform. Letting go of the need to be perfect or to sound good or intelligent and charismatic and. Because when your mind is busy editing every sentence, you lose the connection, not just with your audience, but with your own message. And when you lose that connection, that's when you lose your confidence, even though you're trying harder to sound confident. You lose your power, your authenticity, and in turn, your charisma. So, this is how you stop it. Use the PARA framework. When you're caught off guard and feel that your overthinking is creeping in, use your super communicator power. Drop into structure. Use this quick 4-step formula to reconnect with clarity, even mid-sentence. It doesn't matter as long as you do it. PARA. Point, action, result, ask. Point. What's the core idea that I want to express? Action. What's being done about it concretely? Result. What outcome do I want or do I expect? Ask. What do I need from the other person? It doesn't have to be elegant. Just saying the bones out loud gives your brain something to hold on to. Once you start moving, the rest often follows. For example, let's say you're asked a question about how your team will handle a sudden budget cut. You pause, you breathe, and then you say, "Great question. The point is, we need to maintain core operations without burnout." Point. The action we've taken, action, is pausing non-essential initiatives. The result we expect, result, is maintaining delivery without sacrificing morale. What I'd like from this leadership is a decision on whether to shift resources internally or pause recruitment. Ask. No overthinking, just structure. Just momentum, just presence. Let your words be a work in progress, not a performance. If you want to know more about structuring your thoughts in real time, watch this video just here that goes into structure further and gives you even more practical tools to articulate your thoughts on the spot. All right, that's it for today, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you've learned something today, even a small thing. I certainly enjoy spending this time with you. So, next time you're put on the spot, pause, breathe, and go to your main point, the one thing you want to say. Your voice will land, your idea will stick, and your presence will shine. Just be you. You are more than enough. Communication is not a talent, it's a skill, and it's trainable, and you're already more than halfway there, so well done you. Drop me a little message in the comments. Which of these consequences do you experience under pressure? And which of these tools will you try first? If you want to continue your communication learning journey, click on the video that appears on the screen next. Subscribe if you want weekly advice and tips for speaking, presence, and clarity. And don't forget to download the free communication document in the description below. I'll see you in the next video, my friends. But until then, follow your passion and speak up. Ciao, ciao.